Tonight on Monday Night Nerd, we're here to talk about DC Comics and the new 52 reboot from 2011. That's when I started getting back into comics, so I got a lot to talk about. Was it the best thing to happen to comics? Was it one of the worst things to happen to comics? We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. I will see you in the next few minutes, well, for the next hour on Monday Night Nerd. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday Night Nerd. My name is Corp Cosplay. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means so much to me that you're here every single week, even if it's your first time, even if it's your 50th time. Greatly appreciate it. If you don't know me, my name is Corp Cosplay. I've been a cosplayer for over 10 years. I've been attending conventions for over 10 years. I've been volunteering at conventions for what seems like ages. I'm a nerd overall, and I'm here to talk about nerdy things, talking about comics, video games, cosplay, movies, everything under the sun. And tonight, we're talking about the new 52. Back in 2011, DC Comics decided to scrap everything in their comic line and reboot their entire line of comics with the new 52. Was this the best thing that could have happened to them? Was it the worst thing that happened? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more in the next little bit. But first, as always, we're going to talk a little bit of news because it's been a fun week. If you didn't see me on the pre-show, I've been under the weather for the past couple days, so I have not been doing a ton of stuff. But what I have been doing is playing a new game on the PS5. I was actually playing the remaster of Mafia 2 for the last little while, which I love the Mafia series, and I was so glad to revisit Mafia 2, which was actually my first Mafia game. Had a blast doing that, but there was bugs and it kind of bugged me. But you know what doesn't bug me? Playing Power Washer Simulator. That game is so fun. I cannot believe how much fun I am enjoying Power Washer Simulator. It is free right now on the PSN for the next couple weeks for the month of December. And the game is exactly what you think it is. It is a game where you get a dirty project and you are in a first-person mode with a power washer and you are power washing things clean. It is so relaxing that it is one of my new favorite games. I can't explain it because I've said it to a couple people that how much I love this game, and people are like, it sounds so boring. And I said, yes, but in a good way. Like, I don't have to struggle to beat time limits in this game. I don't have to beat a high score. I just get to relax and take my time and power wash things. And I've said it again to a couple people and they've thrown it off, and I stopped them and I said, but wait, there's DLC. And some of the DLC includes power washing the DeLorean from Back to the Future, Midgard, and Tomb Raider's house, Lara Croft's mansion. It's really fun. Like I said, I've been playing it for the past couple nights and just sitting back. And and like I said, there's no music. So it's not like you have to pay attention to anything. There's just the sound of power washing. So I've been playing with my headset on, but I also have an earbud in. And on my earbud, I'm playing like relaxing jazz music. I'm this close to falling asleep playing this game because it's so relaxing and so fun. So if you haven't played it and you have a PSN and you've got the free games for the month, download it, give it a shot. Like I said, it's not like any other simulator. Like I played Lawn Care Simulator and stuff like that. But with that stuff, there's things you can screw up. Like you could step on people's flowers and it loses money and stuff like that. This is just a complete relaxation. You kick back, enjoy. I'm so glad I picked this game up. I'm going to play it for the next little while. I'm probably going to play it all through Christmas because, like I said, it's just so relaxing and fun. Phantom Frontier in chat. Let's go, New 52. Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about the New 52. Because, yeah, it's when I got back into comics and I got some thoughts on what I think about all the different 52 series that they did. But again, we're talking about some news. One thing I did watch this week is Reacher. There aren't many shows that I will sit through. I'm not a TV guy. I've not watched Breaking Bad. I've not watched, Game of Thrones, or any show that anybody is so into that's taken over pop culture. I'm not that guy. Reacher, however, I loved season 1, and I'm starting season 2, and I'm stoked to watch it. For those who know me close and are good friends of mine, you all know that I have a man crush, and that man crush is the man Jason Statham. That is a guy that he is on my list. If he gave me the opportunity, I'd be more than happy because he is a beautiful, beautiful man. But Alan Richardson takes a good run for that line, though. He is incredible in that series, and just the first episode of season 2 has got me hooked in seeing the rest of it. Noah in chat, Reacher's near perfect. You know what it is, and I'm not even a book guy, so I know this is based off a series, and I have not read any of the books, so anything in the show is all fresh to me, and I'm super excited to watch the rest of it. I'm glad it's on Prime. I'm glad it's not a fight to get a hold of this show, because there have been some shows that I've wanted to watch in the last little while. I'm not going to spoil anything. There have been some shows in the past. Prime example, Swamp Thing. Love that series, but it was a pain in the arse to get a hold of. Twisted Metal. I would love to watch Twisted Metal, but it's on a streaming service that I don't have, and I don't want to get another service just for one series. I'm going to forget. It's going to cost money. It's not worth it. I'll figure out another way to watch it in some capacity. But Reacher, such a good series. I'm so excited to watch the rest of it. I've just watched episode 1, Noah, so don't worry. I'm not going to be spoiling it for you. The best part of the first episode is what we all saw in the trailer, where he breaks the guy where he breaks the window on the guy trying to carjack the woman at the ATM, which was an incredible scene. I'm really interested to see where they're going to go. The twist at the end of episode 1 is definitely a hook to pull you in for the rest of the season. So good on you. Can't wait to watch the rest of the episodes. I know episode 2's out now, and I think 3 and 4 just dropped too, so I'm going to check those out in the next few days. That is it for the news. Like I said, I've been kind of out of commission, not feeling well the past couple days, so I didn't do a ton. There's not a ton of news, but unfortunately today we do have to say goodbye to an amazing voice actor in the video game industry. I am a huge, huge fan of this series. It is one of the unsung heroes of Rockstar. And if it wasn't for this guy, this character's voice and impact would not be as well loved as it is. And that is, as Justin says in chat, James McCaffrey passed away today, who, if you don't know, is the voice of Max Payne through Max Payne 1, 2, and 3. Like I said, I have been a huge fan of Max Payne since the first one when it came out. The second one's great. Even the third one I loved, and I will replay that game multiple times because it was such a good game. James McCaffrey, known for that, was on Rescue Me with Dennis Leary. Such a good actor, amazing in the role. I know he put out a video, I think it was a couple years ago, for one of the Max Payne anniversaries where he did part of the speech. Yes, I don't know if he does the voice in Allan Wake. I know the actor who plays Max Payne is in the Allan Wake series. But yeah, he might be in it. But yeah, it's sad to see him go. He lost his battle to cancer at 65, and we used to have a section on the show called Thanks to the Memories, but I stopped doing it because it just made everybody, kind of depressed halfway through the show. But someone like this deserves the recognition. So James, thank you so much for the memories. It means so much that you put your voice to an incredible character. And thank you, Rockstar, for keeping the character alive, even though there hasn't been a game in the last little while. But hopefully, spoilers, if you played Allan Wake 2, maybe you will get another Max Payne soon. But unfortunately, I think it might be with a different voice actor. So, James, thank you for the memories. And Justin, thank you for pointing that out, reminding me in my head. I have not played Allan Wake. I have it on my PS5, the remaster, and I need to play it. But ever since the Video Game Awards, I have had Herald of Darkness in my head on repeat every second of the day. And I think because I watched the video about 100 times because it is such a good performance. If you guys have not played Allan Wake, just I think you need to play. I've seen the clip of the game that it's from, the section that they do at the Video Game Awards. Check out Allan Wake 2 Herald of Darkness and see if you can find the video game footage first and then watch the performance from the Video Game Awards. It was incredible. And like I said, it is so catchy and it's been stuck in my head for about a week and a half, 2 weeks since the Video Game Awards. So great job, guys, for getting such a catchy song in my head. That is it. That is it for the news today. We're going to go into sponsorship and then we are going to jump into the main event. Folks, if you haven't been here before, if you have been here before, you know that my sponsor is always, always, always going to be my beautiful, loving wife, because if it wasn't for her, I truly, truly admit I would not be the person I am today. I would not be in the position I am to have the guts to get up here in front of a camera and do this every single week. It truly means the world to me that she always has my back. I hope that she sees this every single week and it means the world to me that she always has my back and stuff like this. So thank you, hon. I love you. You'll always be my sponsor. Even if somebody pays me money, they will always go behind you because you are my number one sponsor, because you give me a lot more than money. Hun, I love you. Thank you. All right. For those who are new, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, can you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all those cool things that make the algorithm think that this is a good video? It means the world to me. It means so much to me that you guys press like, subscribe, all those things, because, it just makes the algorithm like me a little bit more. So thank you for doing that. Phantom Frontier in chat says, not to mention Christopher Judge being all great. Yeah. So, you know what? Before we jump into the main event, I want to mention, let's talk about that for a quick second. Christopher Judge, who plays the voice of Kratos in the new God of War games, was presenting an award. And the year before, he had won an award, and he gave a very long 8-minute speech. And he made a joke while presenting the award this year that his speech was not going to be 8 minutes. However, 8 minutes is longer than the new Modern Warfare Call of Duty campaign. And it got a bunch of oohs from the audience. And then a bunch of the Call of Duty people went up on Twitter and everything else and, did their whole, well, we have more retention than Call of Duty. It's like, okay, folks, it was a joke. Calm down. But if you really want to go there, folks, what series is more beloved, truly, Kratos and God of War or Call of Duty? You guys put out a new Call of Duty every year. It's kind of a paint by numbers at this point. I used to be a Call of Duty fan. I was in line outside for Modern Warfare 2 when I played it. Like when it first came out, I was there waiting for it. Modern Warfare 3, Call of Duty Black Ops. I was in line at midnight getting those games. And now I don't even touch them because it's just a paint by numbers. And I'm so tired of the same thing over and over again. I used to play nightly. I used to be up for when I used to work at Tim Hortons. I would work the midnight shift, get home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and be playing till 5, 6 in the morning, just playing multiplayer. And I loved it until I realized that I spent a whole year playing a game, and then the new game came out, and nothing from the old game mattered. And I realized that, and I'm like, this is a waste of my time. The COD people's responses were so playground humor. Yes, they were, but they're COD people. I haven't touched COD game. Justin says I haven't touched COD game since Black Ops. I've played a couple of them. Anytime a new one comes out, I will wait until it's dirt cheap or they give it to me free on the PSN, and then I'll play it. But I'll never play multiplayer. I'll never play zombies. I just play the campaign because I'm a single player now. I don't play any of the multiplayer stuff because it's just boring to me. It's just people cursing and yelling at each other. It's just not worth it. And if you don't have an amazing internet connection, there's lag, and it's just a pain in the butt. It's too frustrating. Did that. I'm too old for it. It's over. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. Thank you for bringing that up, Phantom Frontier. I forgot that he did make that comment. Whatever, the God of War game will do amazing. And the new one, when it comes out after the Valhalla one, will be amazing. Anyways, let's jump into the main event. I am rocking my Mighty Ducks Deathstroke t-shirt tonight because tonight we are talking about the New 52. Now, what is the New 52, folks? If you aren't a comic book fan and you want a little bit of background on what the New 52 is, the New 52 was a complete relaunch of the DC comic book landscape back in 2011. So before 2011, DC had a series going on called Flashpoint, which brought in a lot of multiverses and a lot of, it was a big crossover event. It was really, DC loves doing that type of thing. And then after it was over, they really didn't know what to do. So the DC heads decided what we're going to do is we're going to cancel every series that's running right now. And we're going to relaunch with 52 new number ones. And we're going to start everything fresh. And we're going to give everybody a fresh chance to jump in. There were some changes to continuity. There were some that weren't. And we're going to get into more of that later. Why did DC decide to do this? That's the question that a lot of people have is why, if you're doing so well with DC, I mean, you've got your pillars of the DC universe. You've got Batman, you've got Superman, you've got Wonder Woman, you've got Flash at this point because Flashpoint was mainly a Flash book. You've got so many background characters, including the Justice League, including, Batman's Rogues Gallery, every Rogues Gallery, to be honest. Why would you restart everything? Well, the DC Comics had a problem, and that was for over 80 years, they had to deal with continuity. And what does that mean? Well, the first comics were, Detective Comics and Action Comics back in the 30s, and it was kind of hard to remember what everyone had done until then. And you have hundreds of writers, hundreds of artists, hundreds of everybody coming in and saying, we're going to take this character and we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, over and over and over again. And then you forget, well, did Batman kill this person back in this issue? Did they save them in this issue? Did this happen? It was so hard to remember anything that was going on in that universe. Plus, throughout the years, DC had bought other companies. They had bought Wildstorm. They had bought Vertigo by that point, and they had brought that universe into the DC universe, but the DC universe was already kind of complete, and you're now trying to put these new universes in. It was just frustrating, I bet, to be a DC person trying to understand how all these things work together, but also, like I said, deal with years of continuity. Now, Noah in chat says, now it should also be noted that Marvel does similar events, but they don't rest. Well, we're going to get into Marvel a little later. Believe me, they're on the chopping block as well. With 80 years of continuity, you also have hundreds of issues. It's really hard for a new comic book fan. And at the time, I wasn't a new comic book fan. I had been reading comics since the 90s. But you're still trying, if you haven't kept up, it's hard to jump into Superman issue 255 and go, oh, all of this makes sense. Because you can only do 1 or 2 pages at the beginning that basically says, before you read this, this is what's happened. So it's kind of hard to do that. And there's just way too much backstory. You don't know what characters have interacted, what characters haven't interacted. Like I said, who's died, who hasn't, who's been resurrected. And again, it's comic books. So even when you see a body, they might be back in 20 issues. So having people come back, die, multiverses, all that stuff, they wiped the slate clean with the New 52. Now, let's jump into my personal background on the New 52. I have been going to Fan Expo since 2009. I had been in comics a little bit by that point. I will admit I took a dive before Fan Expo and wasn't really reading except for maybe a little bit here and there. But once I started going to Fan Expo in 2009, I really started to get into comics. Because for those who've been going to Fan Expo for the past couple years, let's say past 5-6 years, DC and Marvel used to have huge booths at the conventions where they were debuting new things. They had creators at the tables. They were showing artwork off for new things that were coming up. Honestly, it was one of the best parts about going to Fan Expo because you got early access to so many things that were coming up in the pipeline. For example, when I first started going to Fan Expo, I knew there was a thing called volunteering, but it was my first convention and I didn't want to volunteer because I didn't know what that was. But my buddies who came with me, Tom and Gavin, they decided to volunteer. And where did they end up volunteering? They ended up volunteering at the Marvel booth. And they got to sit there and talk with Dan Slott, who writes Spider-Man, about Spider-Man. Because they were talking about what they were going to do with them in the next little while and possibly killing him in one of the universes. So it was really cool back then because when you would go by the DC booth, prime example, the first year, one of my favorite series was just around the corner. Green Lantern Blackest Night was just down the road, and they had artwork of what all the characters would look like in their Black Lantern costumes, and that really hooked me. I remember going around 2010 and they said that DC was going to have a big announcement and we would go to all of the panels for DC or Marvel. We would usually pick one or the other because they'd sometimes overlap. And it get to the point where we would try and sit front row for everyone. And it got to the point where some of them might even recognize us from past panels. But I remember sitting down and they were saying, what we're going to do is we're going to possibly cancel a few of the properties. They didn't say they were going to cancel everything, but they said we're going to try and do a little bit of a restart on a few series. And that kind of caught my attention because at that point, and even now, I don't think anybody had ever done that before. Comics really had a legacy to them. You had, like I said, so much history of, Superman and knowing about the death of Superman and Batman's parents and the origins of all these characters. They had sort of a prestige to them of having an issue 300 behind a name. So we were really excited about this. And just around the beginning of 2011, it was announced the new 52 was on its way. The DC universe was getting canned, and the new DC universe, the new 52, was coming ahead. What they were going to do is they were going to start with one issue, and that was the Justice League issue. And then the next week, they would have a few issues come out. The next week, a few issues. The next week, a few issues, until the end of the month where they were all 52 issues available. Now, what did we do? Well, my buddy Tom, my buddy Gavin, and myself, we got together and we said, we got to buy all of them. We got to buy every issue one because we all know issue ones are important later down the line. And we know we're never going to get an issue one Spider-Man or an issue one Action Comics or something like that. But we could get an issue one of this new series. And if this is a series that's going to keep going for years and decades, we have the opportunity to get all the issue ones. So we did. We went out and we all bought the issue ones, but we all didn't buy all of them. We kind of broke them up. So without really trying, we more decided when we got there. We knew each ones that we know our favorite characters, and we knew we were all different enough that my buddy Tom wanted all the Batmans, my buddy Gavin wanted all the Flashes, I wanted all the Green Lanterns and the other Lanterns. And we would kind of break it up where we ended up all having, knew what we'd all have issue ones. And there were some series that we were like, I don't know, but we all ended up saying, well, you take this one, I'll take this one, just so we could pass them around. And if we ended up liking them, we would just trade, which is so nice because I couldn't see myself buying 52 number ones. And it actually worked out really well because there were so many issues that we ended up trading that now I'm a huge fan of. I didn't buy the first Swamp Thing. My buddy Tom did. And then I ended up reading and loved it and loved Yannick Paquette's artwork, that I became a huge fan of that series and a huge fan of Yannick Paquette's. So we ended up going, and of course, everyone else had the same idea that we did. So everybody wanted these issue ones. So we ended up going to about 3 or 4 stores in the area to get these issues, because if we tried to go to one, we'd be out of luck. So we had, just like everybody in the city, we had the big comic book store up the mountain Big B Comics, which is the one everyone knows. They have a booth at Fan Expo. They have a booth at Niagara Falls Comic Con. They're the big one. They're the big store in the area. They've got a couple other ones now. We ended up going there first, and we picked up a couple. They didn't have everything, and I think that's, again, because they were the biggest store. Some people got there before we did. We weren't there like first thing in the morning, but we still tried to get there as early as we could. So we ended up getting a couple, and the biggest problem, and I don't want to bash Big B, even though there are people in the chat that probably would love to do it as well. Some of the people that they employ at their store are not the best people to be selling comics, in my opinion. I have had several issues with that store when it comes to, I don't know if gatekeeping's the term, but maybe more. Thank you, Fandom Frontier, for pointing that out. Fandom Frontier is those people. They have a problem with them feeling like because they work at a comic book store, they're better. I'm not saying that all employees are like that, but I've ran into a few. JS, how's it going? Good to see you. But yeah, Big B has always had that aura about him, and it really started to show its teeth when this New 52 stuff happened. My buddy Gavin wanted to get a couple of the issue ones that they didn't have, so he asked them to order them. They said problem. They took a while to get there. So during that time, Gavin ended up going to another store that just randomly crossed his path, and he ended up picking the issues up from there. Well, it was the next couple of weeks, and we ended up going back up Big B, and Gavin was there, and he said, cool, can you just let me know if there's anything in my box? And the female that was there said, yes, there is something here. Would you like it? And he said, well, no, because I already picked it up at another store. Thank you for holding it for me. Thank you, but I don't need it. She freaked on Gavin. She was pretty close to just straight cussing him at that point, saying, you wasted so much of our time, so much of our money, blah, 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 blah. This is such an inconvenience for us, which all in front of customers, by the way. And all three of us kind of looked at her like, well, it's an issue one from a series that everyone is wanting. Just put it on the shelf. It'll sell in about 5 minutes. But no, she had a big freak out and and we ended up putting all of our books down and walking out. And since that time, I've probably been in that store 5-6 times. That was 2011. It's just not worth my time. I've heard certain people who are in chat say that stigma and that way of thinking with some of the employees is still there. It's unfortunate because, same with cosplay, all these nerddom things. We're such an accepting culture, but just with every other fandom, there are so many people who just want to stifle you and make you feel like you shouldn't be here. And it's so frustrating to see sometimes. So we ended up going downtown to Dundas, and we ended up going to Conspiracy Comics when Conspiracy Comics was just one store. And we ended up going there consistently for the next little while. That became our hub, and we ended up going there every single week. We would get together, and we weren't driving at the time, so we would all meet at a certain location. We'd hop on the bus, and we'd bus it down to Conspiracy Comics. We would get our box and buy all of whatever series we wanted, and we would come back to my place. We'd get some lunch, and we'd kick back and read comics and talk about what issues we liked, what issues we didn't like. It was a really, really fun time. And this is a little sidebar for anyone who, old, young, whatever. Please, sometime in your life, there are going to be moments where things are going to be whipping by you and you're going to be enjoying the process. Or you're going to be enjoying whatever you're doing. Take a second and stop and just breathe in the situation and enjoy it for like 15 seconds. I cannot tell you how many times I do that, and it means so much later on. I can vividly remember and put myself into sitting on my floor of my bedroom and looking over and seeing Gavin and Tom reading comics in my room and just being surrounded by comics and just thinking like, this is so fun. I get to hang out with two really cool guys and we're just going to talk about comics all day. Like it was such a blast. And because we're older now, we don't get those opportunities. So if you get those moments, take advantage of them and just take those 15 seconds and enjoy it, because believe me, those memories will be so good later when you can sit back and remember them. JS in chat says, New 52 kind of happened as I was losing interest in collecting comics. I've heard very similar things, and I've heard some people have some problems with them resetting the entire universe if you've been a fan for so long, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But let's talk about what I loved about the New 52. Hang on. Marvel was going down the drain, and DC was doing weird stuff. Even Image wasn't doing well, so I never really got into the New 52. That is a very good point. I've seen a bunch of people talk about how just in that world of the New 52 and Marvel and even the independents, it was a rough time in comics. And we're really going to get into in a few minutes about why was it really worth it for them to do the reset. But like I said, let's jump into the best here for a minute. What did I love about the New 52? Well, as I said, this really helped me get back into comics, because I was one of those people who would pick up an issue and I would go, this is issue 210 of Batman. I have no idea what happened in issue 209 back to issue 5. Like, I have no idea what the backstory in half of this is, and let alone any continuity. So this was a really cool place for me to go, okay, I'm going to get Batman issue 1, and it is going to be hopefully a backstory and a little bit about the character, and then a brand new story that I don't have to worry about knowing anything else. Also, the amount of interesting books that came out of this. Now, when you think of 52, it's hard to think of 52 characters in the DC universe off the top of your head, which was really interesting to me because, what were they going to do? Like, they can't do Batman 15 times. They can't do Superman 15 times. Like, they have to go into really deep depths of the DC universe to bring some of these characters and give them an opportunity to have some spotlight. Because when you've got all these major characters and you've got a continuing storyline with, a Batman or a Superman or a Green Lantern or a Flash, it's kind of hard to say, and we're going to throw you a Jonah Hex. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Fandom Frontier, I'm about to go into it. One of the best things about this was getting all these new stories. So getting a new Guardians, which was Kyle Rayner, my favorite Green Lantern, getting his own story that had all the different colored lanterns in one story. You had elements from every Lantern Corps in one story, and it wasn't, a Green Lantern story that was based on like a Hal Jordan, having them as background characters. These were all together as main characters. So that was really cool. Getting to see great mashups that I didn't expect to be that good. The Batman run that Snyder and Capullo did is one of the best Batman series I've ever read. I knew Capullo from Spawn, so I knew the art was going to be amazing, but I didn't know about Scott Snyder. Their mashup just gave Batman new life. And I don't think Batman in the comic world would be as important as it is now without that team up. They blew it out of the water. Even on issue 1, I knew this was going to be a good series. Last but not least, I could continue, but we're just going to go over a couple of them. The one that knocked it out of the park that I didn't buy this issue 1, and I'm kind of bummed that I didn't because I now own 3 of the graphic novels. Aquaman was incredible. The way they redid Aquaman with Jeff Johns and Ivan Reyes was so good. Again, being a Blackest Night fan, Ivan Reyes' art is some of my favorite. And knowing that it was Jeff Johns and Ivan Reyes again colliding with another character, I should have seen the writing on the wall and I just didn't. But now I've read at least 3 of those graphic novels and they are incredible. The sarcasm in the first issue where Aquaman walks into a restaurant and orders fish and chips is hilarious. And just everyone turning and staring at him and him being confused on why everyone has a problem with it. It's such good writing. And it's another series that I just didn't see working, but it really did. With all these new series also came some really cool new characters that I wasn't expecting. Grifter was one I didn't see coming, and I'm glad I got issue 1 because I've read almost every one of that series. I knew him from Wildcats, but seeing his own series was so good, and the reinvention of the character was also good. Like I said earlier, Swamp Thing was amazing. The artwork of Yannick Paquette made me a fan of his to the point where I actually, in the drawer over there, because we don't have it out yet, or we don't have room for it, my wife has a sketch from Yannick Paquette because I loved his artwork and we went to Fan Expo together and he did a sketch and she ended up winning it and I wanted to keep it for myself. Animal Man was another one. Batwoman was another one. Arsenal in the Red Hood and the Outlaws was so good as well. All these characters I really didn't have a big affinity to because they were all background characters, but now they have their own issues in their own series, which made me want to read more. And like I said, I just enjoyed the weekly trips. Going down there every single week with my buddies getting comics was so much fun, and I really miss doing it. And I know we can't do it now because we all have so many responsibilities, but they are some great memories. Now, why was DC, the New 52, one of the worst things that could have happened in comics? Well, with issue 1s and 52 issue 1s means there's going to be 52 continuing series. Thankfully, there were only so many books I wanted. However, even with the probably 20 books, maybe less, that I was really reading, that's like $40 just on New 52 books that I was buying every week, plus all the Marvel ones I was reading, plus any independent books that I wanted to read. Weekly, it was starting to get a little expensive to do these things. And again, thankfully, I wasn't reading everything. If you're one of those people that wanted everything, you were having to drop a lot of bank to keep up. And thankfully, like I said, I wasn't buying everything, so I was able to buy the ones that I wanted. And slowly, when series started to fall apart and they weren't really for me, I would just dump them and just stick with the ones I wanted. New Guardians was one. The Snyder Capullo Batman run was another one. The Red Lantern one was another one. The ones that I enjoyed, I kept going, and the other ones I just dumped. But still, there were some... I could see it becoming very pricey for a lot of people if you were really into wanting to have everything. There were some odd choices on some of these books. Now, JS in chat, that was a big problem back in the day when you were a kid, young adult, you couldn't follow everything. And that is a very, very fair criticism. And I saw it firsthand when we got into, wanting to keep all these running, because thankfully, I won't go into too much, but I had the funds to be able to do it. Tom and Gavin didn't. So it was kind of hard after a while where I wanted to keep going, but they couldn't. And, it just, like I said, you were dropping 30, $40 a week every 2 weeks on comics. And we started to realize that we were coming home, reading the comics, and then putting them in a box and not reading them again. And that sort of became an issue. Combine that with the fact that creators were having creativity issues and lack thereof wasn't good for DC. Yep. So we're about to get into that, actually. Yeah, there was a lot of creativity issues. I think if you were there I think if you were there at the beginning and you really paid attention, there was a lot of groups that started with the comics, and not long after, those pairings or groups were moved around, canceled, etc. Fan and Frontier said the New 52 Cyborg series and Hawkman never made it past 5 issues, and that's a prime example. It sucks because you just see them, you get into a series and then within not long after, they're gone. And what do? You got 5 series, you can't really tell a cohesive story. Even going off that, Cyborg and Hawkman were thankfully 2 of the characters that were well known thanks to the DC TV shows. But Frankenstein, Agents of Shade, I, Vampire, Men of War, like those were 3 series that I remember looking at going, those are your issues, guys, because I know I'll never read them past issue 1. And it was just some odd choices when you had a pretty good plethora of characters that could have had their own series that they just didn't do because of whatever reason, whether it was the heads of DC not wanting to give them a shot, whether it was the creative team they didn't find a creative team that wanted to do it. The one that really stuck, I'll never understand this. All American Western was a series that I remember seeing the first issue of and going, yeah, it's a Western, I don't care. I never realized that it was a Jonah Hex issue. If it's a Jonah Hex on it, I probably would have picked it up because that's an interesting character. Yeah, there was just some odd choices when it came to, books that you're looking at going, these, just like the Cyborg and Hawkman, like, are these going to last over 5 issues? I highly doubt it based off how many people, again, were buying these issues. And was this going to be a series that had a continual readership that was going to keep them afloat? And I just don't think half of them really had that. The big problem, and this I didn't pick up on until much later in the year, the amount of, they had 52 new issues, but they still put so much bank on the heavy hitters that it was kind of sad. I was looking through the issue 1s before to do a little bit of research for this episode, and I realized that the Bat family appears in or is mentioned in 14 of the first issues. That's a problem. When you've got Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, Batwoman, you've got all these characters and they're in 14 of the first issues of the first 52. Like, that's a problem. Like, I get Batgirl deserved her own series. I agree that Batwoman deserved her own series, but you had 3 Batman series. Batman, Robin, Dark Knight, the Batman. Like, do we need 3 Batman books? Do we need 5 Superman books or Super Family books? Like Superman, Action Oh yeah, sorry. You also had Detective Comics. So you had 4 Batman series. You had 5 with the Superman's family. You had 3 Lantern books, which I'm a Lantern fan, and I love the Lanterns, and I would love to have millions of series with them. But I realized that, you've got the Green Lantern Corps, you've got the New Guardians, and you've got the Red Lanterns. That's 3 books that could have been used for other series. So I still think I think the research I found, I don't have it by notes, but I remember reading that almost half to 3/4 of it were Justice League characters. And again, like, you've got 52 and 26 of them are Justice League books, not including the Justice League. Like, that's a problem, I think. I think they definitely should have taken some more time to find some characters, especially because they had the Wildcat series. And yes, they did Grifter, but the Wildcat series, the Vertigo series, that they could have really pulled some more characters in and really gotten some series off the ground that I think people would have been more interested in. I think JS brought it up earlier, and this was one of the most frustrating parts for, I think, every DC fan, including myself. The new 52 was a wipe of the old canon. They said this was going to be a wipe clean. You're going to be starting fresh. However, some canon events from the old line will still be in play. What ones? No one said. And that was frustrating because they didn't say the Killing Joke was still in play and that it still happened in the past. That Flashpoint was a thing. Was it? Was it not? Do people remember it? Do people remember interactions with other characters? It was just too much. It's just way too much to try and think of. You're reading a story and then all of a sudden you go, oh, this canon event now plays a factor, and oh, this plays a factor, and it was just way too much to keep track of. And DC had such a problem with it because I don't even think DC knew which ones still were canon. They just said some are, and I think just let the writers go with pick which ones still work. Going back to Hawkman and Cyborg, within 1 year, so many books were canceled. So many books were brought out, confused audience, and it was just, there's always been 3 Jokers. Yeah, that's stuff like that just confused so many DC fans because we just didn't know. We got left-handed and right hooked every time we turned around because we didn't know what mattered. Too many cancellations. There are some like Cyborg and Hawkman that I think they definitely should have let run a little longer, but they cut them way too quick. The cancellation of series, the cutting of teams and moving teams around because they didn't work together, or that's 10,000 different reasons and excuses they gave, was frustrating. I think I'll save that to the end. And the biggest problem that I had with this entire DC New 52 was it was so many crossovers right off the bat. Within 3 years of the New 52 canon, there were 13 crossover events, which meant if you were reading the Green Lantern series and he makes an appearance in All American Western, you now have to read American Western to be a part of whatever's going on, because some issues would have the story for Green Lantern and the Green Lantern, and then the next issue with All American Western, the story will be there and it'll jump back and forth. 13 crossovers in 3 years was way too much for people to handle. 52 new issues and 13 crossovers was just way too much. As soon as they started doing the crossovers, it threw me too far because there were storylines that I was paying attention to, and then they had to switch to a different book, and I just went, I can't, because I have no interest in that series, and I don't have the money to now add another book to my pile that I know I'm just going to read half of it because I really don't care about whoever the main character is in this series. It was so frustrating. And then within 3 years, DC decided to do the Forever Evil crossover, and they started all over again with issue 1s. And folks, that is where I took my final bow. hang on, Phantom Frontier. The New 52 technically started the massive crossover with the Justice League before they even reintroduced the New 52 characters, which I already know and love and already teaming up. Yes, the Justice League was the beginning of it. And then the New 52 did come along after that. Once the Forever Evil kicked in, that was it. That was just too much for me. I couldn't follow any new number ones. They had me with the first bunch, but now it was just, now we're going to keep doing it. Anytime they get backed into a corner, we're going to do a reintroduce and a restart of an entire universe. Side note, if anybody has not seen the DC biography Forever Evil that talks about all the villains of the DC universe, highly recommend watching it. It is a great documentary. I want to say it's on YouTube. If not, Google it, Forever Evil by DC. It's about an hour and a half, I think. They talk to so many fans, so many creators. It's so good to see so many little in-depth behind the scenes thoughts on what the characters think and actually getting into their psychology. Such a good doc. I've watched 100 times. So after all that, after 3 years of New 52, where does the New 52 sit in comic book history? For me, it's one of the most important things because it got me back into comics. If it wasn't for the restart, I probably would not have read as many comics as I read now. I wouldn't have half of the graphic novels that I have now. I think it also introduced a lot of new people, a lot of younger readers to the comic book world because they were all reimaginations of classic characters that, again, have hundreds of years of backstories that it just was too hard to get into. To some people, and I will admit I feel this way too, it was a low point for the comic industry. The comic industry, since technology, things like this have come into play, the comic book industry has struggled. And I feel that, are we in a world where paper comics are going to be a thing of the past? No. But do I think they will be as regularly available and popular? No. No. I think they're going to go the way of vinyl, where they are going to be published, but they will be a specialty buy. You will not be going to a comic book store in the next 10 years and buying $1, $2 issues because I think they're up to almost $4 or $5 an issue now. I think this was DC's last attempt to try and get their comic books into the hands of kids before the digital age kicked in. Because it wasn't long after the New 52 that the digital age really kicked in and things like Marvel Unlimited came out where you can download every Marvel comic ever existing. DC had their own version, which has changed a billion times. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for that one. And I think this was a problem for DC because I think they saw how effective it was and they've tried to replicate it multiple times since. The amount of specialty covers I've seen since then is staggering. The amount, it almost felt like the early 90s where foil covers were back, 3D covers were back, white covers were back. Every other issue had a specialty cover on it to try and get people to think it's the special issue that you have to have. And it just wasn't. And they wanted to make every issue one so important. And I think it definitely hurt the comic book industry more than just DC's, more than just for DC, because I think Marvel saw it and did it, like I think it was JS mentioned earlier, Marvel did it too. Marvel wasn't far behind. And I remember I think it was a year to 2 years later, we went to Fan Expo and Fan Expo announced they were going to do a restart of their entire universe as well. And I looked at my buddy Tom and Gavin and I just went, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I said, there's no reason for it now. DC did it and they did it well for the period. Was it well long-term? That's debatable. But I knew Marvel was just doing it to compete and they really didn't have their heart and soul in it. And after reading a couple issues of that series, I was right. They didn't have the heart and soul that anyone needed, and anyone in Marvel really cared. They just wanted to do their version of what DC did. So in the end, I think if you had just started comic books like I did with the New 52, I think it does hold a special place in your heart. But I do see where a lot of DC fans were really unhappy with it because they had so many issues, so many problems with continuity, timing, the amount of books coming out, et cetera, et cetera. I think it does. I think it sits a lot lower on a lot more people's ranking than it does mine. And I accept that because it was right for me. Folks, that is all for the New 52. Thank you for sticking around. It means so much to me. This is the last episode for 2023. Next week, a week from tonight, is Christmas Day. I hope you all have your shopping done. I can't believe we're a week before Christmas. I will not be doing a show that night because I'm going to be busy with family and friends. You are probably going to be busy with family and friends. So there's no point in me doing one if nobody's going to be here because might as well save it for when you people are available. I will also be skipping New Year's Day, January 1st, because again, everyone's going to be recovering from New Year's Eve. I'm going to be busy getting stuff cleaned up for my house because I'm doing a New Year's party. But I will definitely be back. I believe it's the 8th of January. Let me triple check that before I open my big mouth. 1 second, talk amongst yourselves. Yes, the 8th of January will be the next episode of Monday Night Nerd. Folks, I've been doing this since late February this year. I cannot believe we're a couple months away from 1 year of doing Monday Night Nerd. And folks, it means so much to me that you guys would tune in every single week. And even if you can't tune in every single week, even when you just tune in when you can, it means so much to me. It really does. Especially near the holidays, I start to think about the year in the past. And a lot of people do that for New Year's. I kind of do it around Christmas. Just thinking about what this year has been, if you said to me a year ago, would I be doing a live podcast every Monday night, talking to you folks about nerdy stuff, I wouldn't have believed you if I said that I would have, so many new friends and followers on social media and from people that I met this year at conventions. I wouldn't have believed you. It's been an incredible year for me. I hope it's been a great year for you. I hope there's been no heartache for you. Seriously though, it means so much to me that you guys even check it out for a few minutes. Yeah, it really does mean a lot. And I will be back next year and we're going to keep this thing going because I got a whole bunch of cool people coming on. I got a whole bunch of cool topics to talk about. Have yourself a happy holidays. Have yourself a happy new year. And we will see you January 8th for a new episode of Monday Night Nerd. Everybody take care and we'll see you then. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you in 2024. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.